Ohio State is home to the two best players in college football, either side of the ball, Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. They also just so happen to be the best freshmen in the country each of the last 2 years. And now Ohio State's going to try to continue that trend at cornerback, maybe with Devin Sanchez as a guy who is probably most likely to be the, hey, can this dude go from five-star true freshman to one he's the best college football player in the country? But my question to both of you guys is, it's not necessarily about whether Devin Sanchez can do it or not. It's about, is that a fair expectation? Is Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs and what they were able to do as true freshmen, JJ in Columbus and Caleb Downs at Alabama before he transferred here, Stefan, is that a realistic and fair expectation for Devin Sanchez in year one?
Probably not. And I think Tim Walton today, when listening to him talk, did his part and maybe kind of, I guess, pumping the brakes, for lack of a better term, just in the way he talked about Devin. He talked about them in the sense of like a player who's working his way up the depth chart and trying to develop and kind of, learn the fundamentals, the pre-snap, the speed of the game, everything that comes with being a freshman. So I think Jeremiah Smith was such an exception that the bar, like, even think about Caleb Downs, like when he came into Bama, I don't think anyone was circling him as, the best safety in America instantly, right? And he really, it took him time throughout the course of that season until you really kind of saw him playing at his best. And then obviously we saw, another level to that in his sophomore season. So the Devin Sanchez situation is a little bit different from Jeremiah too, in the sense of where the depth chart is, right? Like last year we knew Carnell and Emeka are great. We knew Brandon Inniss had potential, but there was no one else really on the depth chart who you said was a returning starter, is going to, Jeremiah Smith has to get past that guy to get a starting spot. With Marvin Harrison Jr. leaving, right? There was kind of room for someone to step in, and Jeremiah took that role. You have Jermaine Matthews and Davison coming back, two guys that I basically consider returning starters, however you want to label Jermaine. You also have a guy in Aaron Scott who is, just as talented if you're looking at ratings, or is right up there with a guy like Devin Sanchez, who is now entering his sophomore season. I just think the depth chart's a little bit different for what Devin Sanchez is coming into versus what Jeremiah Smith came into. And then also Jeremiah is just a talent of his own that is kind of hard to equate it. So I'd probably pump the brakes a bit, kind of like Tim Walton did, and just say, Devin Sanchez is very good. Maybe by the end of the year he's got a big role, but I'm not there yet to say this guy's starting day one is going to do things that Jeremiah Smith did.
Tim Walton talked about Aaron Scott and how he's starting to get it a little bit more. He's getting his hands on some balls a little bit more. It was like drinking through a fire hydrant last year for Aaron Scott, and it seems like the game has slowed down for him. Also asked Tim Walton, what's the hardest thing? It's the speed of the game. So how quickly is Devin Sanchez picking up on that? Andrew, where are you on the sliding scale? Are you, yes, he's the next Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Smith, or are you with Stefan here and going, everybody chill out?
Everybody chill out. Like, he hasn't completed spring practice yet. He hasn't gotten to fall camp yet. So I think everybody can relax. I don't think we have to say that he's the next Deion Sanders, and we have to say that he's the greatest cornerback to ever play the game.
Who said any of that?
I'm just telling people to calm down. I think,
for the record, you're the one who brought up Deion Sanders.
You know what?
I said Caleb and JJ as freshmen. He went greatest cornerback of all time.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like I don't like. We don't need to do that. We don't need to do the JJ or Caleb thing right now either. I think when you talk about maybe realistic expectations, I look at a situation like with what Texas had last year, where you had Ryan Wingo, who was a 5-star receiver, a couple hundred yards. You had Colin Simmons, who had a breakout year, and everybody went, wow, this guy might be like the number 1 pick or number 2 pick or number 3 pick or number 4 pick in a couple of years. This guy's really, really good, but he wasn't game breaker, best player in the sport yet. He wasn't best edge rusher in the sport. Ryan Wingo wasn't best receiver in the sport, but I think you saw enough to where you go, yeah, this guy's definitely a starter on this team. Yeah, this guy's definitely one of the best players on this team, but we don't have to look at maybe the best receiver that's ever going to play at Ohio State. We don't have to look at, Caleb Downs plays a position that is being a little bit devalued by the NFL, so his draft position might not be, indicative of how good of a football player he is. But it's one of those things where, like, are we going to look at Caleb Downs, who is one of the better defensive college football players of the last 10, 15 years, and say that has to be the bar? JJ has to be the bar? Of course not. That's crazy, because nobody realistically is ever going to hit that bar, right? It's almost impossible to do what Jeremiah Smith did. It's almost impossible to be one of the best defensive players in the country as a freshman. So I think when you look at Devin Sanchez, there should be very high expectations. There should be expectations, I think, in a lot of ways that this guy should be a starter by the end of the year. This guy maybe should be at least a key contributor by the end of the year. This guy should be one of Ohio State's better defenders. Whatever bar you want to put on it, that is fair. JJ and Caleb are not fair. And if he wants to reach that bar, that's fine. But if Devin Sanchez doesn't become one of the best players in college football at the end of the year, he could still be really good. And I think that should be totally okay with Ohio State fans.
I think there is a pathway, at least, for him to do it. Not saying he will or won't do it, but there is a pathway. You're talking about how Jeremiah Smith, it was essentially, Marvin's gone. They need an next receiver, JJ. Well, Denzel Burke's gone, and Jermaine Matthews could end up being a nickel by the fall. So there's a plug and play. Now, granted, Aaron Scott. That's a big – where's Aaron Scott's progression as an also five-star recruit who's been in the program for a year? I agree with that. I was actually at Devin Sanchez, and I came in here thinking what you guys are thinking. It's not fair. I literally had started writing it already. Hey, it's not fair. Stop using JJ and Caleb Downs. And then I heard him talk. So that's what I got from it. It's it's not fair. So what? This is why I'm here. He said this. It's part of the reason I came here, because there was an opportunity for me to play on day one. He talked in a way that I thought was perfect for a person in his position. It wasn't cocky. It was confident, but it was humble at the same time. He walked that line where I know what type of personality he's showing on the field, but he handled himself in a way of, I know how people are talking about me. I know. I watched what JJ just did last year. I'm inspired by it, but I'm running my own race. But I'm not running this race of, it's not fair for you to compare me to two guys who were awesome as freshmen. I want to be awesome as a freshman too. So I'm with you guys, and I'm not going to be like, if we get to the end of next year and Devin Sanchez is like, I don't know, the 11th best cornerback in college football after his freshman year, it's not a disappointment of a year. But if we get to the end of the year and this is Derek Stingley in Columbus, that's not going to shock me either. I'm not going to put the expectation on him, but I'm also not going to be shocked if it happens.
So I think the best way to say this then, at least to sum up what you're saying, is it's not a disappointment if he doesn't reach that bar. It's not failure if you don't reach that bar. But it wouldn't surprise you if he reaches that bar. Is that the best way to sum it?
Yeah, and some of this is, we've gotten the chance to see what he looks like in pads, and he kind of looks the part already, and he's talking the talk. And on Saturday, when we see the second spring, we'll get to see if he walks the walk a little bit, even though I don't know how much we're going to see him go up against JJ. JJ is not doing anything this spring. It's unfortunate, but listen, we get all fall to watch JJ, and the next fall to do it too. We're probably not going to see much of him. But get the text, 614-350-3315. Let us know what you think about Devin Sanchez and what's fair and what's not, what your realistic expectations are for the number one cornerback in the 2025 recruiting class. I'm Steven. That's Stefan. That's Andrew. We'll continue to discuss this on Buckeye Talk, so go listen to that wherever you find podcasts. We're out of here.